So in this video, I'm going to show you how to easily destroy Uber Duriel, doing over 450 million damage using no Uber uniques. So no Grandfather Sword and no Shaco. Now I discovered a way to easily set up your overpower hit from the legendary aspect Earth Striker, aligned with using the Red Führer unique ring, without the need of any enemies around you or using any shouts. So you can basically set up the big one-shot hit anywhere, and you'll be guaranteed to always have your Earth Striker proc and the Red Führer unique ring proc at the same time. I call this technique the overpower life swap technique, or the OP life swap tech for short. And with the OP life swap tech, you can easily destroy Uber Duriel or any Uber bosses with one shot, and the one shot hit can be set up anywhere with no enemies. So let's check this out. Okay, so first I want to mention that if you watched my previous video on the best endgame HOTA build in Season 2, then this build is going to be very similar to that build. But I've made slight changes to that build to drastically increase my damage. But in return, you're going to sacrifice your defense and survivability. But of course, defense and survivability is not important if your goal is just to one-shot Uber Duriel. So if you're using my previous HOTA build, then you'll do around 280 million damage, which is enough to one-shot Uber Duriel. But you'll also have tons of defense and survivability. And I recommend you to watch that video first if you haven't, because I go into everything in details. And since almost everything is pretty similar to that build, I'm just going to go over the important changes to drastically increase your damage in this video. Now with my previous endgame HOTA build, you can do all the content very easily. But in order to do this, you basically need the best gears and stats equipped. And most people won't have the best gears and stats. So with this build, I'm focusing more on damage, just in case if you don't have the best gears and stats. You should still be able to one-shot Uber Duriel with this technique. But of course, you're not going to do over 450 million damage if your gear is worse than what I have equipped. But your goal is just to hit around 190 million damage. Because one time I fought Uber Duriel and I did around 182 million damage. And he had a sliver of a life left. So I'm guessing Uber Duriel has around 190 million HP in a 4-man party. Okay, so first I'm going to show you how to do the overpower life swap technique. So I did make some adjustments from my skill tree from my previous build in order to do the OP life swap tech. Now I'm just going to highlight the important changes to the skill tree from the previous build, but I'll have a D4 build planner in the description below with the full skill tree layout. Okay, so this is my skill tree layout from my previous HOTA build. Now if you want to easily proc your Earth Striker legendary aspect without any enemies around you, then you will need to take two basic skills. So first you want to refund a skill point out of combat lunging strike and put that skill point into frenzy. So now you can easily swap between two weapons without needing to use any fury and easily get the Earth Striker proc. Now the next thing you want to do is make sure you're using the key passive Unbridled Rage, because this key passive will greatly multiply your damage. And lastly, you need to get these two skills here, so Tempered Fury and Furious Impulse. So in order to get these skills, we need to refund 6 skill points. Now since we are not focusing on defense, we can remove 3 points from Martial Vigor and then 3 points from Defensive Stance. And with 6 points, you want to put 3 points into Tempered Fury, and this will increase your maximum fury, and then put 3 points into Furious Impulse. And this skill is very important if you want to generate fury without any enemies around you and without using any shouts, because each time you swap weapons you gain 6 fury. Okay, so that's pretty much the only changes you'll need to do on the skill tree in order to easily do the OP life swap tech. Okay, so now let's actually do the overpower life swap technique. And the reason it's called this is first because you're doing an overpower hit. Then you're going to be swapping out a skill for a life skill once you set up your big one-shot hit. And in order to set up the overpower hit, you'll need to use skills that swap your weapons. Okay, so first I need to explain that in order to do the big one-shot hit, you need to align the legendary aspect Earth Striker and the Red Führer unique ring at the same time. So with Earth Striker, you need to swap your weapon 8 times, and then your next hit is guaranteed to overpower, doing an additional 100% increased multiplicative damage. Now for the Red Führer unique ring, you need to use 100 fury within 3 seconds to guarantee on your next Hammer of the Ancients to critically strike and deal an additional 30% increased multiplicative damage. Okay, then next you want to have your skills lay out in this order. So Rallying Cry, then War Cry, then Wrath of the Berserker, then Frenzy, then Lunging Strike, and then Hammer of the Ancients. And make sure your 2 basic skills are using different weapon types. So with Frenzy, I'm dual wielding, and with Lunging Strike, I'm using a slashing weapon. Next, you want to have your Red Führer unique ring set up. So basically, you'll need to do 2 Hammer of the Ancients to set it up. Now, in order to gain fury with no enemies around, the easiest way is just to use a shout skill, Rallying Cry, and you will gain fury. But if your shout skill is on cooldown, or you're saving your shout skill, then you just need to use your 2 basic skills back and forth to generate fury. And you can just hold attack the air, and we're able to generate fury because of this skill, Furious Impulse. So once you have enough fury, use Hammer of the Ancients twice, and then your next Hammer of the Ancients will be guaranteed to critically strike. Okay, then next you need to set up the Earth Striker proc by just using your 2 basic skills and swapping back and forth 8 times. And then your next hit will be guaranteed to overpower. And you can see the procs on the bottom of the screen right above your skills. So you're looking for these 2 procs. So once you have the Red Führer unique ring and the Earth Striker proc set up, then you want to swap out the basic skill Frenzy for Challenging Shout. And this shout skill will increase your maximum life, which in return will also increase your overpower damage. So that's where the name comes from, because you're swapping to a life skill. Okay, so now your skills layout should look like this, but I do want to mention that if you don't really need the extra damage from Challenging Shout, then you don't need to switch out the second basic skill Frenzy. Okay, so now to actually do the one-shot hit. So once Uber Duriel spawns, you will need to use all your shouts, and then make sure you dash through Uber Duriel to apply vulnerable from your vampiric powers, and then hit him with the Hammer of the Ancients. You should be doing millions of damage and easily one-shot Uber Duriel with this build. And that's pretty much how to do the OP life swap tech. Okay, so next I'm going to show you what I did to drastically increase my damage from my previous build from 280 million damage to 480 million damage. But I will be lacking in defense and survivability because of these changes. But just be aware that you only need to do around 190 million damage to one-shot Uber Duriel. So I would recommend to do these changes if your gear is not great and you need the extra damage boost. So first with the gear. Now all I changed was the helmet to Godslayer Crown, because the Godslayer Crown unique aspect will greatly multiply your damage when you hit a boss. So when you dash through Uber Duriel, your vampiric power metamorphosis will apply vampiric curse and will also do some damage. So the Godslayer Crown unique aspect will be active when you hit Uber Duriel with Hammer of the Ancients. The other changes I made from my previous build is I changed all the armor gems from sapphire gems to ruby gems. Ruby gems will increase your maximum life and then in return increase your overpower damage. Okay, so that's pretty much all the changes I made for the gear, but I'll have a D4 build planner in the description below with the best gears and stats for this build. Oh, and one quick tip as well to increase your overpower damage is to drink this elixir, the Heating Crushing Elixir. This elixir will increase your overpower damage by 60%, and this elixir is easily craftable. Okay, so next for the Paragon Board. Now, majority of the Paragon Board is similar from my previous HOTA Paragon Board, but I did make some adjustments. I did remove some defensive nodes and applied them to offensive nodes. And I only recommend to do these changes if you really need that slight extra damage, but in return, you will be sacrificing some defense and survivability. So with the Paragon Board, I did slightly change up the path on the starter Paragon Board, getting all the offensive nodes instead of the defensive nodes. So I pathed this way, getting the rare nodes Brawn, and then this way, getting the rare node Raw Power. Then on the Weapon Master Paragon Board, I removed these 2 nodes here, Iron Strength and this magic node. Then I went to the Blood Rage node and got these 2 magic nodes that increased my berserking damage. So with these slight changes to my previous HOTA Paragon Board, I was able to increase my damage. But like I mentioned before, I recommend to do this if you really need that extra damage. And I'll have the full Paragon Board layout in a D4 build planner in the description below. Okay, so thanks for checking out this video on how to easily one-shot Uber Duriel without using any Uber uniques. So no Grandfather Sword and no Shaco. With this build, you should be able to do over 450 million damage if you set up the big one-shot hit correctly. And with the Overpower Life Swap tech, you should be able to always align up your Earth Striker legendary aspect and the Red Führer unique ring at the same time all the time. And if you're looking for the best HOTA build that can easily do tier 100 nightmare dungeons and all other content using no Uber uniques, then check out this video here. Hope this helps in more Diablo 4 videos to come, so stay tuned. And of course,